to tonight's town board meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody to this evening's Town of Amherst Town Board meeting of Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. This evening, I'm going to ask everybody I'd ask for a moment of silence to honor those who have lost lives, who have been displaced, and who have had their lives upset here in the U.S. By the hurricane that swept through the southeast, and would ask everybody to join me in asking for whoever you believe in. In my case, I'd ask God for a cessation of violence in the Middle East. It's a weighty month, and so I'd ask everybody for a moment of silence. With that, I'd ask everybody please stand for a Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With that, I'd ask our town clerk to please call a roll.
Supervisor Copa.
Here.
Councilmember Berger.
Here.
Councilmember Zakala.
Here.
And Councilmember Marinucci.
Speaking of that hurricane, Deputy Supervisor Lavin has been called into active duty with the National Guard and arrived in North Carolina sometime yesterday to participate in post-hurricane cleanup responsibilities there. So we wish him the best. And we hope for his safety and in a return soon. The first item on our agenda are minutes from Monday, September 16th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Don't have any proclamations this evening. We do have some announcements.
Okay. In case of a fire or other evacuation notice, please use the doors on the east side of the room and take a right to walk down the hall. Do not use the elevator, but take the stairs to the rear of the building, descend one level to the outside exit doors. The Amherst Council Chambers is equipped with an assistive listening system. Please see the clerk or any member of the board for more information or to get a set. If you're a student attending a public meeting and need to have a signature signed, please come up to the front dais for a signature. When speaking at the podium, please state your full name and address before your comments.
If you're a student, our attorney, Sam Alba, will gladly sign off on your papers when you have reached the required time. We have a couple of public hearings this evening. The first is Resolution 773, which is 50 Dodge Road. I'm going to motion to open the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, good evening, Supervisor Culpa and members of the town board. Sean Hopkins on behalf of the applicant, Sawyer's Landing LLC. This is a project that 3 of the 4 of you have seen previously, so I'm going to summarize where we're at and what we've modified since you previously saw it. This is the last remaining developable site of what was known as the overall Muir Woods property, which originally consisted of 326 acres. That was to be developed by the UDC and then sold to Simonelli Development in about the year 2000. I've actually been working on this project now for 24 years. Site A is the diagram on the left, the remaining acreage, about 17 acres in size, mostly wooded, and does have some wetlands, which we're now preserving. And the neighborhood uses, as you can see, are single-family homes, generally to the north, within the Bucyrus Heights subdivision. You have some multifamily out along Sweet Home. You have the school along Sweet Home, And then you have some offices across the street, which are largely vacant on the inner curve portion of Dodge Road. Next slide. This is the concept plan that was approved in 2007 for this site. At that point, it was envisioned that would be flex office and R&D buildings, could involve 24/7 hour of operations. However, that never went forward. Ultimately, the market changed and a different use was then proposed. Next slide. As part of the process going from that original plan, we made a real effort to reduce wetland impacts. So that giant wetland that's shown there, 9.81 acres in size, was originally going to be filled in its entirety. We decided instead to preserve it and propose a mixed-use project on what would be the remainder of the 17 acres. Next slide. This is a letter that was issued by Jody Celeste of Earth Dimensions on July 30th of this year, just confirming that with respect to this site, the wetland impacts have been completed and mitigation is ongoing. It's also important to note, and this was important to the town as part of the overall process, including members of this board, there's a recreational trail that will be installed that will connect all the way from here, all the way over to Campbell, and then will connect across Dodge Road into the town's recreational trail. So we should see a good increase in the number of users on that recreational trail, including the large student housing campus located at the very end of John James Audubon, which has been extended, as well as a 133-lot residential subdivision, which is directly to the east of that. Next slide. So this is a site plan that was ultimately approved by the planning board on September 22nd of 2022. And what I'm going to highlight is what's changed. So you can see there in orange with the blue box, we had a 4-story multifamily building with 48 units. We've replaced that. We had 54 units and 27 two-family townhomes with attached garages, and that's shaded in tan. And then we had 2 single-story apartment buildings with 6 units per building tucked up there along the north property line in a darker brown. At that point, we had a total of 258 residential units. So the plan that's in place today has 258 units. It's also important to note that the 43 acres directly next to us will be donated to the town of Amherst. I believe Simonelli's attorney is working with the town, and I'm hoping that'll be completed sooner than later because it has to occur in connection with the development of this site. Next slide. So here's the current plan. So what we've done is we've scaled it back. We still have 2 proposed 4-story mixed-use buildings. Each of those will have 56 apartments. We've replaced the 4-story, 48-unit multifamily building with a 4-story climate-controlled building, which is shaded there in purple. We've, instead of the previously proposed 2-story townhomes and apartments, we're now showing 44 units in 2-family attached townhomes, which is the gray, and then 63 townhomes for sale, which is the orange. So the total density has actually been reduced from what was approved from 258 units to 219 units. Next slide. This is just to show that recreational trail. You can see it there highlighted in white. We'll extend all the way from the town's recreational trail all the way over to Campbell Boulevard, a distance of probably about a mile. So it'll be a nice amenity. Next slide. Part of this request is to amend the NCD classification of a portion of the site. Scott Marshall of the Planning Department determined that that was an oversight, should have been done previously. So we're cleaning that up. That little area that's about 13.45 acres is currently zoned NCD-RI, which means restricted industrial. Obviously not the appropriate zoning classification. We're changing it from NCD-RI to NCD Local Center, which does allow mixed use explicitly. Next slide. The other aspect of this is that we're requesting to amend the declaration of restrictions that was recorded on June 21st of 2018. I'm going to walk through it very briefly. First and foremost, construction access remains limited, exactly the same as it was pursuant to that original condition. Site A, which is the site we're discussing, we agreed way back then, and the current owner has agreed as well, prohibiting them from utilizing the condominium form of ownership. Next slide. Condition number 3 deals with setbacks, and there's various setbacks established therein depending on the nature of the use, whether it's a 4-story mixed-use building, the townhomes, or the townhomes for sale. as well as a climate-controlled storage building. Next slide. And then finally, we're regulating building height. So the maximum building height for the multifamily buildings, the mixed-use buildings, and the climate-controlled storage building is 60 feet. The reason we've specified that is the new community district zoning classification, unlike many of the other towns' zoning classifications, does not have a maximum height. And we've agreed that the maximum height of any residential building within 500 feet, a considerable distance of any existing residential lot, meaning those homes within the Bucyrus Heights subdivision, shall be 35 feet, which is exactly what would be permitted if that site was zoned R3. So we've agreed to restrict the height of the residential uses within 500 feet of any neighboring home. Next slide. So you did previously approve a comprehensive plan amendment to accommodate mixed use on this site. Previously, it was designated industrial office, and a couple of years ago, you designated as appropriate for mixed residential. Exactly what we're doing. Next slide. The planning board did review this request that we're presenting to you this evening during its meeting on August 27th and adopted a resolution by unanimous vote recommending approval of the three requests, which is to amend the finding statement, to amend the declaration of restrictions, and amend the zoning classification of a portion of that site so it will be correct. The planning board made very specific findings that request was consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, as well as the criteria it considers in connection with land use decisions such as this. Next slide. All of this is subject to seeker, the State Environmental Quality Review Act. There has been probably half a dozen environmental reviews of this overall project, dating all the way back to 2007. But I do want to note the following. Number one, the NCD, ND zoning that we're asking for part of the site is certainly less intensive than what the zoning is today, NCD RI. The project is a type 1 action because it was part of a much larger original project. We did submit a completed part 1 of the full environmental assessment form with our application. We've reduced the number of residential units, as I mentioned, and obviously way less environmental impacts compared to what was originally approved, 237,000 square feet of flex office and R&D buildings. We will be implementing dark sky compliant lighting on the site. We have received a no impact determination letter from SHPO all the way back on October 10th of 2001. We did have an updated traffic impact study prepared by Passero Associates. And then finally, if you approve the requested approvals that are in front of you, that will not be the end of the process. Then we have to proceed with fully engineered plans and seek site plan approval from the planning board, which will involve a separate and distinct public hearing. Next slide. So here's where we're at in terms of the process. Obviously, the public hearing. We're asking you to consider closing the public hearing this evening and scheduling a decision date for your meeting on October 15th, I believe. Then we will file a site plan application, including engineered plans, an engineered report, a stormwater pollution prevention plan. The planning board will hold a public hearing, and ultimately they will make a decision on the modifications of the project. And keep in mind, all the modifications that we're making reflect downward adjustments in residential density, downward adjustments in impervious surface, et cetera, et cetera. So if there's any questions relative to the request, I'd welcome the opportunity to address them. Yes, Councilmember Zuccalla.
Thank you. I guess the first one would be, there's a lot of paperwork to go through here, but one of the paragraphs that stuck out was the statement that this is well in line, well in character with the neighborhood. Do you stand behind that?
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
I stand in line with that, and I stand in line with it's more compatible than what was previously approved.
All right. My second question is, when residents do come to me about housing in Amherst, and they do, obviously this would address some of the issues of housing. What do you think these particular properties would go for in the open market?
So the townhomes which would be attached, I mean, the goal, and this is difficult to do in the year 2024, the goal would at least have entry levels at the price of approximately $300,000. That's the goal, which I know doesn't sound cheap, but is cheap in Western New York today. And secondly, and probably more importantly, Councilmember Zuccalla, as part of approaching the IDA, and this is an issue that both the supervisor and deputy supervisor, or the supervisor and Councilmember Berger have worked on, we are now providing 23% of the total units as workforce housing. Those will be priced based on AMI, 80 to 100%. So we're actually delivering for the first time, I think, in connection with the project presented to you, a designated workforce housing component that's part of a much larger project. So we're proud of that. Not only members of this board, but Dave Manjoy and the IDA get credit for that. So that's already been approved, and that is part of the project as well.
I like to hear that. One last item. I know that building purple is going to be for storage.
Yes.
Do you have any idea what might be going in there?
No, it'll be household items. It'll be climate-controlled storage. The leases that you specify prohibit the storage of flammables, explosives, anything that could cause a problem. But it's not going to be like an old self-storage facility where you have the individual garages. This will all be controlled access with single entry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there further questions from the board at this time? Okay, I'm going to open it up to questions from the audience. If you would, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Tom Weisman. On these, these buildings, wasn't that, I'm sorry, I was gonna ask him again, I'm sorry, let me get back. Okay. For these apartments you're building, how big are they? How many square feet? I mean, is it gonna be a very small, one bedroom? You know, I mean, if you're gonna do a one bedroom, that's not gonna work. The two-story homes, 63 of them. I mean, originally I thought that this was being developed a different way. What was original development was for this site, 50 Dodge Road? That should be my first question. And then how did it change so quickly like this? He just put it in September 25th to 24. I mean, that was a quick changeover. We just had a hearing for that previous 50 Dodge Road. Is this a whole total different? You just blew off the other development that was there? I mean, that's.
So I'm going to try to answer. So there was a 258 unit development planned in 2022. The developer is asking for 215 unit. Did I get that right? 219 unit development.
This is 50 Dodge Road, right by Sweet Home.
Why don't we let
Yeah.
Sean Hopkins answer the question?
What was the original development?
He showed it,
Okay. Yeah.
but let's let Sean
I originally
Hopkins
thought-
come back and
maybe
explain.
Maybe I'm thinking about a different
I think you
different
are.
development. I thought it was single-family homes right at Sweet Home and
No,
No.
that's a different project.
at 50 Dodge Road.
No.
No,
Okay,
you're
wait,
mixing up
okay.
projects.
Yeah,
Sean,
so-
can you come up and explain?
I apologize. I was getting my
It's okay. It's fine. So,
I was getting riled up for this one, so I'm sorry.
okay. Sean, so just again, can you just restate what the proposal was in
Yeah, sure.
22 versus what the proposal is now?
Yeah, so can we go back a couple slides?
Like a satellite view, that's really nice.
Well, there's an original again. Couple more. Okay, there. So what was approved in 2007? Keep in mind, this is not something that happened yesterday. 2007, 17 years ago, was 237,000 square feet of flex office and research and development buildings. That never occurred. From the perspective of the surrounding neighborhood, several things. You can see it was tucked pretty close to the residential subdivision to the north, which is Bucyrus Heights. And secondly, again, that could involve 24/7 operations. Nowadays, it certainly would. If it was any type of distribution facility, there'd be tractor trailers coming in and out of that site, probably 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. What changed was, if you can go forward, Tim, a couple slides. Next. This is the site plan that was approved by the planning board on September 22nd of 2022. It involved 258 residential units and preserving about 7 acres of the site as a wetland that already exists. We got input from the Army Corps of Engineers and the DEC, and they asked us to scale back the scope of the project.
And just to be clear, that consists of a 4-story apartment building, 4-story mixed-use buildings, 2-family townhomes, and 2-family homes detached.
2 apartment buildings attached at the
All
back.
right, I'm sorry. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so now let's go forward to finally the plan that we're presented this evening. So this is the current plan. Again, we've replaced the 48-unit, 4-story apartment building with a climate-controlled storage building. That eliminated 48 units. We're now showing 44 units in 2-family attached townhomes. And in terms of number of bedrooms, those will have 1 bigger unit, which will be 3 bedrooms, and then an attached secondary unit, which is cool, that'll be 1 bedroom, all within the same structure. The 1 bedroom will be targeted at affordability. We'll have 63 2-story townhomes for sale, which are highlighted in orange. Again, those are the ones that we're going to try to deliver at an affordable price point. And then in conclusion, we've actually reduced the overall density from 258 units, which is approved today. We could build it today, down to 219.
Okay, so
I also want to mention where single family was always designated, or at least for the past 10 years, was on the far eastern portion of the site, and that 133 lot subdivision has been completed. This is literally the final component of the build out of that site. 326 acres, ultimately only 110 acres of that whole site is being developed.
okay, thanks, Sean. All right, Tom, do you have, okay.
So, tell me which development I'm thinking about, where there was townhouses. I thought that was right at Sweet Home and Dodge Road. It was just a couple.
There's townhomes south on Sweet Home, on the
No, I'm talking
southwest
about on
side.
Dodge Road, 50 Dodge Road. I thought, didn't we just have a
You're thinking of further down Dodge Road near Casey, there was patio homes or small single-family detached.
okay. No, I mean a proposed development.
Yeah, that's not this one. This is back to
So
22.
You telling me this has been in the works since, I know I see the documents from.
Yeah.
Time.
It's,
Yes, I understand that.
so it was approved in 22. They're requesting to reduce the number of units and allow for storage building.
So what does it, has any of the neighbors come up? Do they realize
We're,
what's happening?
it's advertised and then we have the first public hearing tonight.
So it's gonna go through another one?
Well, the public hearing's tonight and we'll see where it goes after this.
And then the planning board would have to.
And yes, and the planning board has to hold a public hearing.
Good evening, Town Board members. My name is Don Smith. Just so you know, I've been around a while too, and I've been following this for almost as long as Mr. Attorney over here has been following it. After hearing all the things it's been going through and all the changes it's made, it's sort of mind-boggling as to its scale and to the activities and changes being done. I'd like to shift to a more high-level sort of approach to this, and that's the economic impact for all the changes that are being made. I have to assume that the developer was trying to maximize his return on investment and develop something that would return to him what he wanted it to do to maximize his benefit. So I suspect there is a chance that this is benefiting him significantly well. When I saw the climate control buildings, I was sort of a little dumbfounded about that because I hadn't seen that before of all the other things that have come about. And I'm curious to the economic justification in the terms of the minds of the developer, why he sees this as a valuable asset to have. I'd like to hear that from them, what's the benefit they perceive they're getting from that, and why that is replacing other things that could have been less economically beneficial. I'm also surprised that it's climate controlled because that's what the town is looking for its records management system. So that's interesting how that overlaps. I'm just sort of interested in where it's going to go. And finally, since we've gone through essentially, what, 15, 18 years of changes and evolution, whether the planning department is going to take a new look at the entire development from the start as an integrated whole and evaluate its impact to the town, and whether this in any way, shape, or form has left some holes or problems or other areas because of all the changes that are being made. It's like moving chessmen around on the board. All of a sudden, you lose one of them in your mind. I'm just making sure that they look at the whole thing. So I want them to take a look at the whole process, the whole thing.
Okay.
Look at the whole process once again. And so I want to find out what the economic justification in the terms of the minds of the developer for the climate control buildings. Thank you very much.
We can ask the developer that, so.
I'd also like to point
We'll-
out
we'll
there
hold-
was a hearing at the planning board level as well.
So we'll batch some of these questions and then ask the developer to answer them.
John Traber, 234 Mount Vernon Road. Just on that gentleman's kind of tail, nobody's opposed to development in a lot of ways as long as there's some benefit to the taxpayers. So I'm just wondering, is this developer getting any sort of tax abatements? And what is the benefit to the taxpayers of the town? You broaden your tax base by bringing in development. And with our taxes going up 11.4%, what is the benefit of this development to the taxpayers?
Kathy Aquilina, Maple Road. When this was brought up before, the land that was going to be donated to the town was X amount of acres. My question is it the same amount of acres? And why now are they writing up the paperwork for this? Were there any changes in this?
I'd like to thank the board for this opportunity. I'm a disabled American veteran. I'm Charles Streichler. I live on Casey Road, East Amherst. I've been in this town for over 20 years now, my wife longer, and I've seen so much change in the last 5 to 10 years that they're putting up all these giant apartment buildings like on North Forest, Main Street, and Transit Road. Everywhere they can find a spot, they're putting up these things. I want to know is, how is our sewer systems and our sewer plant going to be able to hand all of these damn buildings you're putting up? And where is the money coming from that they're doing it with?
Are there any other questions at the moment? We'll ask the developer or ask the representative to come up, Sean, if you would. So I will answer the land use, the land acquisition question. The town is getting the same amount of land that it was in 22, which is a portion of this site, a large portion of last site. I don't know why, it's taken some time to write it up or transfer it, but that was all part of the this is all part of the development process. So we are getting the same amount of acreage turned over to the town. I'll answer the sewer treatment plant question. So obviously there's been some concern over sewer access on the west side. This this particular site sits adjacent to Sweet Home Road. We have plenty of sewer capacity in this area. The treatment plant is in need of continued work, as it is every year. And the reality is the larger developments that you're speaking of, especially this type of development, have bolstered our property values in such a way that it offsets some of the costs that we would have to put into a treatment plant with or without them. Regarding why the developers switched to climate controlled storage, you'd have to answer that though. I don't know what the intent was.
Yeah, so in terms of the economics, what's driving this? And is it being done solely so the developer can maximize profits? No. I mean, what's driving it is there was no demand for the original proposed project, which was that flex space and R&D space. And keep in mind, that wasn't my client. That was the predecessor owner of the site. In terms of the climate controlled building, there's now a lot of residential units, including apartments in that vicinity. Not surprising given the close proximity to the UB North campus. So we know there's demand for that. No one builds those old school exterior storage buildings anymore. Everyone wants climate controlled. It looks much nicer. It will look like a very nice building. It's also important to note in terms of the economics, all the infrastructure on this site is private. Nothing will be owned by the town. So it's certainly going to be net positive from a fiscal impact perspective. We have sought and obtained a pilot. However, that pilot is limited to the 2 blue mixed-use buildings. Anything that would be for sale and the climate-controlled storage is not subject to that. The question that was asked is, well, what is the trade-off for that? And the trade-off is something that's new that the town has come up with. The town has been working very diligently to try and work on a problem that's been identified for probably the last 7 years, the affordability of housing in the town of Amherst. And that's not a problem that's unique to the town of Amherst or any other community in Western New York or throughout the United States. So the IDA, working with certain members of this board, has come up with this innovative policy by which if you do get a pilot, 20% of the units have to be workforce housing. My clients agreed to a slightly higher percentage, 23%. So those units will be affordable. They'll be affordable to people working in restaurants. They'll be affordable to people working in the cafeteria at the school. They'll be affordable to people working in the nearby office buildings that may not be professionals. There is unlimited demand for that type of housing in the town of Amherst. In terms of the acreage to be donated, it's exactly as the supervisor indicated. All of the original acreage that was to be donated, which I believe is in excess of 170 acres, will be donated. That includes the part that people had the biggest concern about, which is directly north of Site B, which is the student housing project, going all the way up to North French Road. At one point, there was a concern that there could be additional development along that area as well, which there would have been under the original plan. So that's all still going to occur. The delay has been wetland permitting, but it's my understanding drafts of that documentation has finally been submitted to at least the planning department and or possibly the town attorney's office. The goal is to get that done prior to the end of the year. And then sewer, I also want to note one other thing that people forget. So any new project that generates more than 2,500 gallons of sanitary sewer per day, both the DEC and the engineering department require what's known as a downstream sewer capacity analysis report. That takes a look at the downward system during wet weather conditions, which are defined as a ½ inch or more of precipitation. And for every gallon that you put in the system, you have to take 4 out. You make a payment to the town, and it's a big payment, the equivalent of taking out 4 gallons for every gallon you put in. And the town has been using that money creatively to make improvements over time in the town's sewer system. So while it sounds strange, it actually has a positive impact on the sewer system by that 4-to-1 ratio that applies. I think I answered all the questions. If there were any others, I'd welcome the opportunity to address them.
Okay. Any other comments?
Sean, if you could quickly, just for a minute, speak to what the process was prior to coming here, because I know it seems like maybe you just submitted this, but you work with our planning department, then you go in front of the planning board with the same things, who approves it before it comes here, but just for.
Right, so before we move forward with this process, and keep in mind, this process is simply a modification. Generally speaking, a downward modification. We filed an application with a whole bunch of supporting technical documentation, which the planning department requires, wetland information, traffic impact studies, et cetera, et cetera. The planning board is required to hold a public hearing and act in its advisory capacity. As I indicated during its August meeting, it did adopt a resolution by unanimous vote recommending approval. Then it comes in front of you for ultimately a public hearing and a vote at a future meeting. And then if we get through those 2 steps, we go to the planning board again for a site plan hearing At that point, the planning board will have all the technical information, and with the assistance of the planning department and a whole host of town departments and committees, will ultimately issue a decision on the project. The goal would be to start this in early 2025. And again, this is the final chapter in the long-standing saga of what's known as Muir Woods.
Okay. Can you please come back up to the microphone? Hey,
Again, you develop to expand your tax
you
base.
gotta restate your name and address, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, John Traber, 234 Mount Vernon Road.
Thank you.
You develop to expand your tax base. What are going to be the tax ramifications? What is the town going to benefit as far as tax revenue from this development?
Yeah, sure. Sean?
So in terms of tax revenue, currently the property generates minimal or no taxes, which is not surprising. The analysis that was done by the IDA demonstrated that clearly over the next 10-year period, it'll generate millions of dollars of tax revenues incremental that'll benefit the school district, benefit the town, and benefit Erie County.
Do you have an idea for construction costs?
Construction costs of this project are estimated at $40 to $50 million.
So your assessed valuation somewhere around 20 million,
It's going to be higher than that.
probably
Right.
30.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once you have an assessed valuation established of about 30 million, then you take the tax rate
Tax
per
rate,
thousand and
we hope.
put it into that and to generate the tax number. So
Right, subject to the pilot that only applies to the mixed-use building.
sure.
But it'll clearly be positive, 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 and to the extent of very big numbers. Again, because the town has no infrastructure to maintain.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Sean. Are there, sure.
Just
Mike?
one. Assuming that the planning, this assuming that it all gets approved, when do you think construction would begin?
As early as spring, as soon as we can. Right now, they're out there actually doing site work. We're closing on a loan for site work in the near future under the old plan. So we'd have to modify the site plan and hopefully come back in January and then proceed from there.
Any further questions? Comments? Seeing none, I'm going to motion to close the public hearing. Set a
Second,
Decision date, sorry, hold on. I said decision date for our next October board meeting.
second,
Okay, thank you. Is that all in favor? Thank you. All right, sorry. Resolution 774, I almost took your second as the vote. Resolution 774 is the local law amending chapter 204 subdivision regulations. I'm gonna motion to open the second public hearing at this time.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening, members of the town board. Daniel Ulatowski, Assistant Planning Director for the town of Amherst. This evening, I will be presenting minor amendments to Chapter 204 of the Amherst Town Code, which are the town subdivision regulations. The subdivision regulations were originally adopted by the town board in 1979, and they were adopted with the following purpose: to allow for the orderly development and redevelopment of land to obtain harmonious and stable residential areas, to ensure the design and installation of high-quality improvements and infrastructure consistent with specifications and standards, to minimize ongoing costs of operating and replacing the town's infrastructure, to provide safe and convenient vehicular and pedestrian circulation, to require reservation of space for school, recreation, and other public use, and to ensure subdivision design is mindful of minimizing impact to natural resources. The amendments that our department has drafted and supported by the planning board address some minor deficiencies and provide greater clarity to ease the code's administration. Some of these amendments include increasing the minimum right-of-way width for local streets from what is currently a 52-foot wide right-of-way to a 60-foot wide right-of-way. The necessity for that is to provide additional room for planting of trees. We've discovered that the developers have sought to use our minimum standard, and it's just too tight. Additionally, we believe it's important to increase pedestrian mobility by widening sidewalks. Currently, our sidewalk minimum requirement is 4 feet. We wish to increase that to 5 feet. We think that is a prudent improvement. Additionally, These amendments will eliminate the use of a hammerhead turnaround as a permanent road termination feature in favor of a round or a cul-de-sac feature. Additionally, these amendments are going to reduce the use of cul-de-sac roads as terminations unless no other road connection opportunities exist. So I know there's been some concern that we're going to eliminate cul-de-sacs altogether. We're certainly going to do our best to discourage cul-de-sac dead-end streets. We want road connectivity. We want better internal circulation within our subdivisions. These amendments also reduce the number of permitted curb types that the highway superintendent is currently allowing 3 curb types. This will limit the numerous types of curbs, only allowing for 1 upright curb. So we have some uniformity for the highway superintendent when he or she must replace curbs in the future. The largest change in this law is establishing a new procedure which we think is necessary based on some recent practices in the development community, in particular where it came to the dedication of public highways. This new section provides a procedure where the town board will actually participate early on in the development of a proposed subdivision prior to a petitioner filing for a preliminary plat application. What this will do is the developer will approach the town board prior to filing a preliminary plat application after he or she has filed a sketch plan and has some consistency and agreement with the planning board as to the general layout. The developer will seek from the town board a resolution of commitment. And this is a request before you to determine whether or not the town board desires to have a public highway. Currently, that is not the process. The process is that a developer will go through preliminary plat approval, final plat approval with the intent of a public highway, and then come to you for a commitment to accept it in the future. So we hope this is a better and more predictive process both for the town as well as the developer. As part of that resolution of a commitment, we will be asking that the developer provide to you an affirmation of whether or not he or she will be seeking condominium status, providing you with an itemization of the future maintenance costs to the town, and how the public improvement, roadway, or other infrastructure actually is a benefit to the public. Alternatively, if the developer does not wish to propose a public highway or other public improvement, the developer will then be required to provide at the time of preliminary plat application, draft sewer and water work certificates of incorporation so that we can have some assurances that these roadways, as well as particularly the sewer and water infrastructure, will be maintained in perpetuity by an entity that can maintain those as approved by the New York State Department of State. The next steps, I ask that after I have answered any questions of the board and the general public, that you consider closing tonight's hearing and establishing a decision date for October 15th, allowing the planning department to prepare a secret determination of environmental significance and providing to you a resolution, hopefully, of adoption. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have and any questions of the audience.
All right, first questions from this board.
I have a lot of questions, and I think we need some more time. I think your timeline is too tight. The procedure's really important. I'm glad that that got put in. I'm wondering how some of the decisions will impact the cost of construction of these homes. We've made some changes that I'm not sure are helpful. As you know, I am against eliminating the T. I think we need to keep it as an option. While the cul-de-sac may be preferable, I don't think we should say none can be allowed depending upon the site. Also, in terms of the connectivity, it is not feasible. There are circumstances where it's not feasible. There's no way in the next 20 or 30 years that you're going to be able to connect. So why would you make that requirement? And I think I have some other questions. I have to continue to go through it.
We'd be happy to discuss your concerns, Councilmember, but let me make it quite clear that the T turnaround is still going to be permitted. However, it shall only be permitted when there is an obvious future road connection. If there's not an obvious future road connection, like you have indicated, there may not be any opportunities for future connectivity, then a cul-de-sac would be the desired road termination, similar to what we had at 166 Klein. That ends in a cul-de-sac.
And the cul-de-sac came about when one of the planning board members wanted to vote no and he couldn't think of a reason. So he threw out that it needs to be a cul-de-sac.
Well,
So
yeah,
I was there.
we can agree to disagree, but I think that is a preferred geometry and more aesthetically pleasing. It provides, in the case of a public highway termination, it's certainly easy for the highway superintendent to maintain snow rather than making a three-point turn and pushing snow. So we can agree to disagree. We're more than happy, myself, the planning director, and our staff, to sit down with you, address each and every concern you may have, as well as any other board members. But we do wish to advance this. I'm a little hesitant to suggest that there's any cost additions to the development community. We haven't heard any outcries from the development community. This has been on our website for several months.
Have you pointed it out to the developers and the construction companies that you're making these changes?
Again, this has been an open dialogue.
Well,
Mr. Hopkins comes on our office regularly. I haven't heard him concerned about it. Maybe if he has some concerns, we'd be happy to discuss it.
I think that's appropriate.
Well,
So
wait a minute. When we've made other changes, we have had input from the developers. We had multiple meetings to have some input. I'm not saying they should be the decision makers, but I don't see how there's no cost involved when you're changing as many things as you are. And what I'd like to see is an example of what a current design looks like. I'm not saying an actual project, under the current guidelines, and what it would look like with the changes.
Again, we're more than happy to discuss that. Admittedly, sidewalks will increase, but that's an added cost that benefits our community as a whole. Walking on a wider sidewalk certainly is beneficial to the public at large, and I think the development community can afford to give us an extra foot on a sidewalk. Additionally, extra width in a road right-of-way to plant trees. Some of these changes, yes, may have a minor impact on their profit margin, but we have to look at the overall community benefit that these changes provide. And we're more than happy if the development community wants to reach out to us. This has been on our website for 2 months. No one has reached out to me, no one from the builders. We're happy to discuss it. If you're uncomfortable moving it forward quickly, we're happy to sit down.
with more questions from this board.
Please. First of all, as liaison to the fire companies, I know fire companies have pushed for years. They like the idea of being able to approach a target or a location from two directions. So they know that they're a big fan of that. So I'm happy to see that. But something I know you said, but I want to make sure I got it on the record. Sure. This is not retroactive. You're not going to go back and change some.
Absolutely not. This
Okay.
would be for someone who's yet to file a preliminary plat. And we have one developer right now in sketch plan approval. These changes would affect him, particularly the procedure aspect. That developer is going to have to approach you and tell you why the proposed public roadway, number one, it has a benefit to this community. Number two, that they're committed not to seeking condominium status after you've accepted a highway and perpetually maintain it when they are seeking condominium status with a reduced assessed valuation of 65%, similar to what happened at at one of the neighboring subdivisions, which, you know, surreptitiously, that developer sought condo status without our knowledge, and the town already accepted the highway. So that's why we wish to propose these changes, so that, you know, we don't, we have a greater benefit to the public good.
Okay, further questions before we open it up to the audience? Okay, I'm going to open it up to the audience at this time. If you would, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Don Smith, North Long. I'm going to try to be heard this time. I agree with Councilmember Berger that I think they're rushing this. There's no reason to. It's unnecessary. If it's what it's supposed to be, a big benefit, it'll sell itself. So I don't think that's a problem. Secondarily, we're coming into the budget season. I think it should be put off until after the budget process is completed, frankly. I don't think it should be part of it. It should be mixed in with that. As far as the resolution of completeness, I'm not sure that something like that shouldn't be prototyped, or at least reviewed in terms of best practices in the development community and proved through best practices. Okay? If it's that good, then the proof should be there. So I'm looking for proof. And I want to see things happen well. I'm not calling out Mr. Ulatowski on anything here. I have great respect for this gentleman. He's a good man. So I would like to at least make sure that we do it in an orderly, not rushed fashion, and also we have some proof or at least some general best practices information that shows that this is a benefit to the residents of the town. Thank you very much for listening.
Further comments or questions?
Good evening, Sean Hopkins, and I'm just going to comment on a few things that I have questions about. They're more questions than anything relative to the draft subdivision regulations. And I think the overriding issue that everyone should be thinking of in connection with this is, does it affect affordability? Why? Well, we hear complaints every meeting that people are proposing apartments, how there's new demand for multifamily. And the reality is, it's the marketplace. There is hardly anywhere left to build a single family home in Amherst that has sewer capacity. And as a result, you have many younger individuals that want a home, deserve a home, want to live in Amherst where it's safe, but they simply can't afford it. When you see smaller homes that are 1,000 square feet located over in Eggertsville selling for $300,000, it's a problem. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration. To the extent this increases the cost of development, I think that's a bad thing, because again, it's going to discourage development in those few remaining places where it would otherwise be permitted. In terms of sidewalk widths, the one change that was mentioned by Mr. Ulatowski, I don't think anyone has any objection to that. A 5-foot sidewalk probably is appropriate based in the year 2024. The other concerns I have is there's a definition of buildable area, and I believe buildable area is what generates the allowed density. And this is new provision to the code, and it subtracts any area that's a wetland or an adjacent area, and then also subtracts drainage and waterways. I don't think that change is necessary. It's also important to keep in mind that the DEC will be implementing new freshwater wetland regulations as of January 1st of 2025, expanding the adjacent area and expanding wetlands. Doesn't mean that property can't be developed. It just means that you need more onerous permitting requirements. I don't foresee any need to subtract that from the acreage of a site in determining the allowed density. In terms of streets, cul-de-sacs, T-turnarounds, my only comments would be as follows. Number one, there are a lot of cul-de-sacs in the town of Amherst. There are a lot of people, including me, who live on cul-de-sacs that like living on cul-de-sacs. I think that choice should be preserved, that you should have that opportunity. It shouldn't be forced or generally discouraged to allow cul-de-sacs. I think the same thing of T-turnarounds. In certain instances, T-turnarounds are appropriate because of environmental aspects of a site, because of the width of the site, or the appropriateness of other environmental and economic factors. So I think all of that should be considered in terms of that. In terms of two other aspects, number one is which a hyper-technical requirement. So the subdivision regulations contain a provision that states the time period between when the planning board grants preliminary plat and you file for a final plat application is limited to 180 days. Unfortunately, in 2024, it's impossible to comply with that standard. The reason it's impossible to comply with that standard is you have to go out and get all of your other approvals from the DEC, the health department, and the water authority. And I think the planning department would hopefully share my opinion. I think that time frame should be increased, so at least it's a year rather than 180 days. And then my final comment pertains to public roads and private roads in condominium status. I want to make clear several things. Well, first, I want to make it clear, me personally, I oppose the utilization of the condominium form of ownership for detached single-family homes on individual lots with private roads. I don't think that's fair to the rest of us who pay based on fully assessed value. However, the problem with the language is, keep in mind, oftentimes the developer and the home builder are not the same party. And you're asking the developer to make a commitment on behalf of a party that doesn't yet exist. So I think we got to be careful there. The general rule, and there's case law that backs this up, is municipalities such as the town of Amherst do not have the ability to regulate form of ownership, whether it's gender-based, condominium-based, et cetera, et cetera. So I think you're going down a little bit of a slippery slope there in terms of that particular issue. I think the better solution is for anyone who feels that way to lobby the state legislature to change that particular loophole. However, I don't believe the town could regulate it on the local level. With all that being said, I would also be interested in seeing, because there are a lot of changes, some illustrations of maybe what this would do to a subdivision or two, a hypothetical subdivision or two. And I think it would be appropriate to leave the public hearing open. I can make sure others that might have concerns or comments have the opportunity to comment before it's adopted.
Anybody else at the moment?
I just want to take an opportunity to respond to a couple of things Mr. Hopkins had indicated. He doesn't like the definition of buildable land. The definition provides clarity for an existing section. So when you take the time to review this, I want you to note section 3-1-5, which is suitability of land in relation to natural resources. So when you read this, take your time. We're more than happy to take comments. I appreciate everyone's comments. We're happy to slow down. Some of the suggestions Mr. Hopkins asked for, such as increasing the time frame from preliminary plat, final plat, we're happy to discuss that. I think his concerns are probably unnecessary with respect to the definition. We're simply trying to provide clarity. We don't want people to build on wetlands. We don't want people to build on water bodies. And we don't want, we can't allow developers to build in the floodway because it's just not permitted. So some of the things that the definition offers for clarity are prohibited anyway. So I think the concern is a little unnecessary. And I just want to thank Mr. Hopkins for acknowledging that he does not like the idea of single-family dwellings seeking condominium status. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions the board may have. Thank you.
So I think the reality, the scenarios, the month of October is the next couple of meetings are budget public hearings. I think out of just to make sure that our due diligence is correct on this because this is a big deal. It's the first time we've changed subdivision regs in a while. Probably would be inclined to adjourn the public hearing to November 12th and continue at that time. That should give the planning department board plenty of time to review, take into consideration outside comments, receive outside comments, and return to public hearing, close, and make a decision that day.
Great. We appreciate the time. We appreciate anyone's feedback and comments. We'll look for best practices. We know our neighbor Clarence to the east, their town board looks at whether or not a roadway being offered early on is of public benefit. So it is a good practice. So thank you very much.
All right. With that, I'm going to motion to adjourn the public hearing to November 12th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next item on our agenda is public expression. Before we get to public expression, I do have a brief. I've always done a budget overview on this day, so I'm going to just go through the budget overview as it's published on our website. So the budget public hearings are going to be set for October 15th at Town Hall at 7 p.m., October 25th, 2024 at the Senior Center at 10 a.m., and October 28th here at Town Hall at 7 p.m. Additionally, you can send comments via mail, via email. We have an email address that's budgetcomments@amherst.ny.us. The budget and that website are all that email and the budget are posted. We have a website page that is specifically https / www.amherst.ny.us / budget comments. And if we go to the next one, sorry. So this year's budget, I know it's hard to read. It's hard to read every year, every time I put this up. We are increasing, I am proposing, this is the supervisor's proposed budget, does propose a tax levy increase and a funding increase. However, it's offset by the amount of growth we've had. That growth has been discounted against the assessment. So our comptroller's office made sure we were comparing apples to apples. If you go to the next page, the overall, all the way to the bottom, I'm sorry. The overall increase or decrease that you'll see is a 1.32% decrease. That's roughly a $27 per household decrease. The median family, median value home. So most residents will see decreases in their taxes of about $27. And it's a 1.32% decrease for the year in the rate. As far as the budget goes itself, it leaves all of our fund balances north of our stipulated fund balance, our fund balance, internal fund balance regulation of 10%. So we are maintaining a healthy fund balance and healthy reserve, and returning a small tax cut this year. With that, there's an opportunity for public expression to be further presentation of this at our October 15th meeting and all the meetings subsequent to that as we go to public hearings. All of the budget is posted to the website. I invite everybody to please take a look at that. There is an increase in police personnel again this year, another officer. That is offset by decrease in economic development staff by a couple. We have a couple of additional increases. We have, I think, 6 total positions and that have been added. That's a net set of positions. We have, in some cases, eliminated multiple part-time positions in favor of full-time position, or merged full-time and part-time positions, or merged full-time positions. So this is a brief overview. Again, we're starting the process by posting that and setting the public hearing dates. So with that, I will motion to open public expression.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have a list. I'm going to go by the list first. First speaker is Bill Blake.
Bill Blake, Fairlawn Drive. That was some good news, I think, positive. So we're here this evening to present the findings of the Amherst Town resident survey that was launched on May 23rd and ran until August 10th. The purpose of the survey was to provide the town board with real-time feedback on a variety of important issues and to provide the residents an opportunity for their voices to be heard. The 21 questions were created by a bipartisan group of residents and were designed to be informative, relevant, and provide residents with an opportunity to express their candid opinions regarding the status of the town government and the overall management of our tax dollars. The survey was completed by 1,331 residents during the 79-day period. We intentionally did not use any previously acquired lists, such as the petition for a permissive referendum for musical fair, so the survey would be categorized as random. The survey was posted on several social media sites. QR codes were handed out at events such as Old Home Days, Music on Main, and other events throughout the town. The Amherst Bee ran a front page article on July 17th describing the effort to allow residents to express their opinions. The survey was also mentioned on WBEN and WGRZ News. Based on guidance from experts in the polling industry, a randomized survey of a population of 129,000 people requires 1,032 respondents to attain a confidence level of 99% with a margin of error plus or minus 4%. What this means is that if the survey was repeated over and over again, the results would fall in the same interval. Polls conducted on CNN, NBC, CBS, Fox News typically have 1,500 to 2,000 people participating in a random public survey to predict the opinions of a larger population. Before other members of the Amherst Town Concerned Citizens Group come up and present the findings, I want to suggest, if there's any concerns with the results, we would suggest the town board conduct its own survey. We believe it's a good idea to hear the voice of the residents beyond the 3-minute comments at board meetings and opinions expressed at other public events. Finally, our objective here is to provide honest, open, relevant feedback to help ensure that our tax dollars are being invested in areas that the residents need and want. The results of the survey are the opinions of 1,331 residents during a specific period of time. The results are what they are. I believe the survey can be used as a positive learning tool by all the stakeholders. Over the last 45 days, we've seen a sincere willingness on the part of the supervisor to consider several recommendations put forth by the Amherst Concerned Citizens Group. Recent actions to review the structure of the Amherst Government Financial Advisory Boards are encouraging first steps. We're also pleased to see the supervisor engage George Woodbury, the preeminent national expert in municipal lighting, to assist with the evaluation of the recent bid for maintenance on the town's streetlights. Other efforts to identify areas to reduce costs in the 2025 tax levy are also encouraging. We met with the supervisor to discuss the survey. Whereas we may disagree on the survey results, I think we agree that more direct feedback from the residents is important and beneficial. We're looking forward to further discussions regarding the areas that we feel residents need their direct input. I want to thank those who participated in the survey and hope this feedback will help both the residents and the town board work together in a spirit of cooperation to cost effectively improve the quality of life in Amherst. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate you listening.
Okay. John Trabert.
John Traver, 234 Mount Vernon. The first set of questions on the survey pertain to the demographics of the respondents and their familiarity with town government. First question, how long have you lived in Amherst? Almost 83% said greater than 10 years, 8.5% 6 to 10 years, 8% 1 to 5 years, and less than 1% had less than 1 year in the town. Next slide. What is your zip code? Almost 44% was 14221. Almost 32% was 14226. 9.2% was 14228. Almost 9%, 14051. 6%, 14068, and 0.5%, 14261. So this means that 75.6% of the residents who completed the survey were from Snyder, Eggertsville, and Williamsville. Did you vote in the last town of Amherst election? As you can see, almost 85% said yes, and a little over 15% said no. The vast majority of the respondents are actively involved and interested in their town government. Have you attended a town board meeting in the last 6 months? Almost 70% said no. Just over 30% said yes. We believe that if the poll had been taken in 2023, the number of residents who attended meetings would have been considerably lower. Thank you.
Hi, Julie Van Lente. I live in Snyder. I will be covering what residents said about police and fire protection and their opinions on the recent reassessment. Here we go. Okay. The first question was, how do you rate the public safety services, police and fire, in the town of Amherst? 37.9% said excellent. 40.8% said very good. 16.2% said good. 4% said fair. 1.1% said poor. The comment is a very good rating of 78.7%. Next slide. If the town of Amherst Highway Department provides your services, how would you rate the quality? This includes reuse and recycling, road repair and maintenance, tree care, snow removal, and ground maintenance of town property, including parks. Excellent was 12%. Very good was 31.5%. Good was 27.5%. Fair 18.4%. Poor 7%. And those who live in Williamsville, 12%. So comment was 43.5, excellent to very good rating. Next slide. Based on the recent property reassessment, do you feel your new assessment is fair and accurate? 16.7% said no. 33.3% said yes. Comment was maybe better communication and more time to challenge the value of your property would have impacted this rating. Next slide. The town of Amherst is a safe and affordable community to live and raise a family. 14.8% strongly agree. 34.2% I agree, but the quality of life has changed. 32.8% I agree that it's safe but not affordable. And 18.2% I disagree and believe that it may be difficult to reside here in the long term. Comment, 51% of the people feel that the cost of living in Amherst is a significant concern. Next slide. Actually, thank you. And next person. Thank you
Jerry
for your time.
DeCosmo.
My name is Jerry DeCosmo, and I live on Meyer Road. I will be covering how the residents feel about the performance of the town board. Next slide, please. The Amherst Town Board understands and acts in my best interest. 4.1% strongly agree. 5.3% agree. 12.3% were neutral. 32.8% disagree. And 45.4% strongly disagree. Next slide, please. The Amherst Town Board is making responsible financial decisions with my tax dollars. 4.4% strongly agree. 4.6% agree. 6.4% are neutral. 27.6% disagree. And 57.1% strongly disagree. Next slide, please. Please select the statement that you most agree with. This is, I don't think this was the next slide. Can you go back one? Well, I'll read this one because the next one is, do you believe the members of the town board understand the resolutions they are voting on? 12.7% say yes. The board members have a complete understanding of the resolutions they are voting on. 40.3% say no. The board members do not understand resolutions and vote along party lines. 47% said, I'm not sure of the extent of their understanding. Next slide, please. The Amherst Town Board passed a local law on March 11th, 2024, that's intended to enhance transparency with the budget process. Please select the statement that you most agree with. 11.9% said, I believe that this new law will provide the necessary transparency that is required for me to understand how my tax dollars are being spent. 57.2% said, I do not think this new local law will have any effect on the transparency of how our tax dollars are spent. 26.1% were not sure, and 4.8% had various comments. Next slide. Whose interests do you feel the town board represents? 9.4% said the town residents and businesses. 80.5% felt developers and other special interests. 10.1% were not sure. The comment, we believe that doing a resident survey twice per year would enable the board to better understand the opinions and investments that the taxpayers need and want. Thank you.
Ray Barry.
Ray Berry, Thistle Lee, 110. The two questions I have to talk about tonight are the town board elections and overall rating. I will be covering the question of term limits and the overall rating of the town board. The first question that was asked was, there's talk within the town about rescinding the local. There's talk within the town about rescinding the local law imposing term limits. Do you support term limits in the town of Amherst? 93.3% said yes, I believe the term limits are necessary. 6.7% no, I believe elected officials should be able to run for office until they are defeated. The next question, what is your overall rating of the performance of the Amherst Town Board? 1 being extremely poor, 10 being excellent. For clarity purposes, they've grouped categories 1 to 5 and 6 to 10. The overall rating, what is your overall rating of the performance of the Amherst Town Board? This is the view of the chart that shows the 10 categories and the residents' rating within each category. The next slide shows this data in a pie chart. Good to excellent, 17%. Extremely poor to fair is 83%. We hope that this important feedback will help with how the board communicates and manages our tax dollars in 2025. And I think that the term limits one is a reflection not just of our town. I think that's all of politics everywhere now. Everybody is calling for term limits, but thank you.
Okay. Jennifer Snyder Haas.
Hey, my name is Jennifer Snyder Haas. I reside at 185 Fairways. I'll be covering the questions regarding residents' understanding of development plans and the financial requirements. The first question, how familiar are you with the development plans and required financial investment necessary for these projects? 32%, I am very familiar with all the town's development plans. 59.3%, I am somewhat familiar but don't have specific understanding of the details. 8.7%, I don't know much about what the town is planning. My comment, a substantial majority of those surveyed had knowledge of the issues, which adds credibility to the survey results. Next slide. The town has plans to develop the former Westwood Country Club property into Amherst Central Park. The project requires the town to issue bonds to borrow millions of dollars. What is your opinion regarding these plans? 12.8%. This will be an excellent and worthwhile investment, and I would be willing to pay additional taxes. 87.1%. This would be nice to have, but I am not willing to pay more property taxes. Next slide. Do you support the board's plan to transform the Boulevard Mall into a high-rise cityscape featuring low-income and student housing with mixed retail spaces? 18.5%. I think it is a good plan to redevelop and use the property for housing and retail space. 72.8%. I do not agree that the town should be involved in the redevelopment of the Boulevard Mall. 8.7% open comments. There were a total of 96. Of these, 11 were approve, 70 were against, and 15 indicated they needed more information. Next slide. The town borrowed $7,160,000 to upgrade Royal Park Sports Complex. This project is being done largely to support Damon University sports programs. Town residents will have access as well. Damon will lease the park for $1 a year. What is your opinion of this project? 8%. I support borrowing $7,160,000 to upgrade the park for public use and use by Damon. 84.6%. I do not think it is an appropriate use of our tax dollars to support a private university. 7.4% were open comments, a total of 92. 4 approve, 60 disapprove, and 28 needed more information. These results show that residents do not want big, expensive development projects, particularly those that would be paid with taxpayer dollars for the benefit of private companies and developers. This is in line with how residents feel about Amherst Central Park. They do not want big buildings on or vehicular roads running through the parcels. The whole Amherst Central Park plan needs to be re-examined, considering both the Audubon and Westwood parcels, to arrive at the best combination of land use and affordability, with direct resident input. Keep Westwood Green is asking town board members to schedule a meeting with us in the near future to build off some concepts the town has already introduced and present some ideas of our own. We are hopeful that we can have a constructive dialogue and find solutions to create beautiful and useful spaces with income to support their creation and maintenance. Thank you.
Andrea Morganti.
My name is Andrea Morganti, and I reside in Gettsville. I'll be presenting the overall rating of how Amherst is being managed and a brief closing statement. Question: what is your overall rating of how the town of Amherst is being managed? The question was asked on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being very disappointed and 10 being very happy. how do you feel the town is being managed? And for clarity purposes, we group categories 1 through 5 and 6 through 10. Next slide. This is the view of the chart that shows the 10 categories and the rating within each category. The next slide shows this data as a pie chart format. On a scale from 1 to 10, what is your overall rating of how the Amherst is being managed? 19% good to excellent, 81% extremely fair, poor to fair. Next slide. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present this important feedback from the town of Amherst residents. We would like to emphasize the fact that this survey should be viewed as a learning tool that is meant to have a constructive impact on the members of the town board. We wanted you to hear the voices of residents. Based on changes that have been evidenced at recent town board meetings, we feel as a community we are moving in a positive direction, and that has always been our goal, working together. Thank you.
Tom Weisbeck, Drawbridge. I just wanted to talk to you about the Costco. So I just want to know what the update on that is it moving forward. How's it? Is it more than Costco going to be there? Because what I drove by the other day was a huge development. I thought there was going to be just Costco there, not. It looked like it's turned into a huge development, and now is the road going right out to Maple Road, the secondary road? Most important. I drove by, saw right at Red Robin, whatever the street is, Beaumont, I think. I forget the name of the street. Beaumont. So that must be going out straight out there for an exit. So you must have one on going out toward Niagara Falls Boulevard also, possibly. So that's all I got about Costco.
Thanks. Jane Cox? Jane?
I'm going to move the mic over here because people face this way when they talk. My name is Jane Cox. I live on Harlem Road. Supervisor answered some of my questions already about the budget meeting timeline. The question I have about that is the Friday, October 25th meeting at the Senior Center, which will be at 10 in the morning. Is this going to be a regular meeting with a public hearing? Is it going to be a special meeting? Is the public going to be allowed to speak? Is there going to be a budget presentation? What's the format going to be? And will there be a public expression? And will the meeting be recorded? Will it be live streamed on YouTube? Will it be then available on the town website? Or because it's at a different location, will there be no record of it? My other question is about the citizens' budget overview, which was supposed to be a document available to the public with a synopsis of the final budget. Did the board get their copies of the budget today? And is this document the document that you said is now online? My other questions are about another topic that has come up, which is the bylaws for the Financial Advisory Board, who apparently rewrote their bylaws. I wonder if they have been reviewed by the town board. Have they been reviewed by the town attorney? Is all this been approved by the government, or is this just the committee doing their own bylaws? I believe you all received a copy of a letter from Paul Wolf, who is the president of the New York Coalition for Open Government, regarding his opinion on what those bylaws say. I hope you will all read it and discuss it. I hope you will put it on the agenda for the next meeting, at least under communications, if not as an agenda topic. So we can straighten out what is going on in some of these town committee meetings where there is no transparency, the public is not being allowed to participate, and they're actually being told that they can't come to meetings, can't record meetings, and this has not happened in the past. So let's talk about it. Thank you.
Okay, Tom Frank.
Good evening, town board members. My name is Thomas Frank, and I'd just like you to know that Ellicott Creek is the town of Amherst Central Park Greenway. And I'm proposing a joint resolution to the Village of Williamsville and Town of Amherst Board for the Glen Park Joint Board as the project lead agency. For there are two connections that are important. The original agreement goes back to 1977. And number one has to do with the connection to the Niagara River Greenway. And the second has to do with the connection, and I hope you'll have a motion to approve these two. It has to do with the connection to the Erie Canalway National Heritage Corridor. That Erie and Niagara County were granted $450 million by the Niagara Power Project relicensing settlement. And I think they're giving away like $9 million a year. This is very important. We're talking about a $10 million capitalization over a 5-year period. And one of the Greenway project includes a disaster prevention mitigation facility at the Amherst Town State Park, the 404 Mill Street, the St. Mary's Convent, the Boiler House, as far as the asbestos contamination, for an adoptive reuse as for a next generation environmental education center, and the board resolution. It's based on the Rhinestone Woods Environmental Education Center in Cheektowaga, as far as the interconnecting all the parks in the village of Williamsville, town of Amherst. It will there will be community interconnected collaboration with the village, the village of Williamsville, the town of Amherst, and the Sweet Home school districts as a. But it will also include Damon University and the UB North Campus, which are all, you know, if you look at what's happening, the 6 states.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to collaborating.
Thank you. All right, Dennis Hoban.
Good evening. Dennis Hoban, 216 California Drive, Waynesville. First of all, I have a couple things I want to say, but I would like to thank the Amherst Concerned Citizens Group for the good work that they did on this survey. I think it shows that you folks are doing a horrific job for us. Your faces are on every single one of these projects, and it's just terrible. And what's really unfortunate is that citizens have to go and prepare a survey and shove it in your face so that you realize what a terrible job you're doing. I mean, it's unbelievable. And it's unbelievable. The job you're doing is just absolutely terrible. Anyway, I'm going to read something. This is no reflection on the police department, because I think that they're doing the best they can. But I'm going to read this. This was on September 21st, 2024. An Amherst police officer stopped a pickup truck that was traveling 19 miles over the speed limit on Millersport Highway. When the vehicle stopped in the lot of a Flint Road hotel, it was determined that none of the occupants spoke English. A translator that was at the hotel assisted the officer to perform field sobriety tests after numerous open containers of alcohol were observed in the pickup truck. It was determined that no one in the vehicle had a valid driver's license. A recently deceased deer was observed in the back of the pickup truck, or the back of the pickup bed, and was removed before the vehicle was towed. The driver was released with traffic summonses and stated he did not know why he was bringing a dead deer to the hotel. Brian, these are the people that you have allowed to come here from Cheektowaga after they raped 2 women. And I just think that I hope that nothing terrible happens because these people are here. But what are we waiting for? Are we waiting for someone to drive illegally and be drunk and kill somebody on the highway? Can you answer that question for me? What are we waiting for, Brian? They were in New York City. They were in Cheektowaga. Now they're here in the town of Amherst. Why are they here, Brian? Why have you allowed this? Brian, look at me. Why have you allowed this? Well, I'll stick around for my answer, Brian. I want an answer tonight. Why have you allowed this? And this is no reflection on the police department. I don't want anybody spinning this, saying I'm against the police. I love the police. They're doing a great job. But their hands are tied, and you allowed these people to come here, Brian, and it's wrong. Thank you.
My name is Colleen Bogdan. I live on Summershade Court. In 2001, the New York State DEC studied flooding along Gott Creek and found a severe constriction at the existing Peanut Line Bridge as a cause for residential flooding, including the Pine subdivisions and beyond. The least expensive solution is to remove the narrow Peanut Line Bridge and expand the creek banks on town-owned property. 3 budgets later, no funds have been allocated for this remedy. And the town of Amherst continues to pump these neighborhoods during high water events. According to the GBNRTC minutes I just gave you, last October, someone from the town of Amherst decided to submit an application to them, asking them to help build an off-road Peanut Line trail right on top of the problematic bridge. Trail supporters in the town of Amherst would have to be devoid of a conscience to proceed in light of the DEC findings. There are no public records at Town Hall for this application request. GBNRTC republished numerous statements saying they are coordinating with the town of Amherst, but all Amherst departments say they're not coordinating, and this is entirely a GBNRTC project. I just gave you two long-standing town board resolutions from 2002 and 3. Both require the peanut line to remain in its natural state. For local use, one requires an alternative primary route in lieu of the peanut line to connect to Clarence. They passed these resolutions after hundreds of Amherst residents worked with the town board members to explain serious drainage and safety impacts to their neighborhoods and local schools. Who in Amherst had the authority to submit an application to the DBNRTC despite the DEC study? Why are taxpayer funds being directed to Western New York recreation rather than necessary flood problems in our own town? At this moment, the town does not have proper emergency access to the Gott Creek floodway between the Peanut Line and Transit Road. In fact, you have used residential properties in times of emergencies and left damage. Under seeker, a Peanut Line trail is a type 1 action due to the proximity to wetlands, as is the severe constriction found by the DEC. This town board cannot maintain that Amherst has no role here. You own the bridge, you own the flood problem, and you own the right-of-way. The remedy is owned by the town. The solutions are owned by the town. And as a requesting agency, you are required to open a public record file for public review. And the buck stops right here. Thank you.
Good evening, town board members. My name is Don Smith, North Long. I'd like to reiterate what I've heard from Jane Cox and others about the Amherst Financial Advisory Board bylaws. I've rarely seen anything so egregious as a bylaws which is apparently aimed at the residents to prevent them from attending meetings. That doesn't make any sense. The purpose, they specify they're working with priority data where the management letter is essentially an open document. I cannot understand how they consider that privileged information. Doesn't make any sense. If they've got other information that is privileged, they should tell me what it is and why they cannot provide it to the public. Secondarily, they mentioned in their bylaws they're an independent organization. My question is, independent of what? Independent of the town board? Independent of the residents? Are they a benevolent organization? Who do they belong to, if anything? They're called out specifically in town resolutions as an organization that's enabled by resolution by the town board. So I figure they're not totally independent. They can't be. They've got to have somebody to report to by some sort of mechanism, which is a legal one. Secondarily, the vice chairman mentioned in his meetings that before he was going to publish the bylaws, he was going to have them okayed by the interim town attorney, which apparently was done. Since the interim town attorney does not act in a vacuum by himself and reports to the town board, where he gets his power, that means that the town board has to be okay with it too. So now the bylaws, which I encourage every resident of Amherst to read and understand, which I think is an overreach and is taking us in a wrong direction where we want to be to an anti-transparent organization, doesn't make any sense. I think you've got some people here that are misguided at best and probably maybe unknowingly doing a job which I don't think they may be qualified for. And I'd like to find out all the qualifications for all the members of that committee to allow them to meet and make resolutions for us. Secondarily, I don't think what they are coming up with is going to be remotely valuable if the presidents themselves have no idea what they're doing. This shouldn't have gotten this way. You should have stopped it before it got here. You should have cut it off. It's politically stupid in the first place. and you should probably try and keep those politically stupid things from coming to the public. It's not helping you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Karen Howard. I live at 194 Roycroft Boulevard in Snyder. And first of all, I want to say I'm somewhat encouraged to hear that we're actually going to have a decrease in the taxes for our 2025 budget. My question is with respect to bonds. Do you also budget for changes in bond activity? Because I'd be interested to know how much we are paying down on our bonds in 2025 and what our budgeted increase in bonds will be in 2025. Thank you.
Seeing none, I'm going to move to close public expression.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll go through the meeting. I will do all of my answers at the end. So resolution 775. I'm sorry, first item on our agenda for adoption tonight is a consent resolution. I'm going to ask our town clerk to please read that.
Supervisor Copa, 2. Council member Sakala, the 1 was withdrawn. 2, 3. Town attorney, 1, 2, 3. Town clerk, 1, 2. Building maintenance, 2, 3. Controller, 1. Contract compliance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Court, 1. Engineering, 1, 2. Highway, 1, 2. Human resources, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Planning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Police, 1. Sewer plant 16, 1, 2, 3, 4. Communications, 1, refer to attorney, 2, refer to attorney, and 3, refer to attorney.
Okay, I'll motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Next item is resolution 775. I'm going to motion to, well, we're holding this resolution, so I'll motion to withdraw it this evening. This will be subject to potential budget amendment later on in the month.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
It's published as is. So, resolution 777 was withdrawn via consent, right? The next item is resolution 785. I'm going to, we held this earlier. We had some clarification that was needed regarding, so look to our town attorney.
The CRS number, I believe.
We still hold 785. Okay. So I will then motion the resolution as it appears.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey, the other item that we still have on the agenda is resolution 812, the acceptance of a donation of a police department dog. I'm going to motion resolution 812 and accept the donation from the foundation that's providing the dog for us.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Then I'm going to motion to open the second round of public expression.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Don Smith, North Long. Could you give me a reason for the withdrawal of Resolution 777 specifically? And could you give me some information as to the person who was originally tasked to be appointed next to that committee?
Yep. I will address that.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Morganti, and I reside in Gettsville. I'd like to thank you, Supervisor Copa, for pulling off the agenda the bylaws that were being proposed by the Amherst Government Financial Advisory Board, AGFAB. Nonetheless, we are here before you today with a heavy heart. Injustices are being perpetrated, and we can no longer sit by and be quiet. Councilman Zuccalla, we do not take pleasure in bringing forward what is perceived as a betrayal of trust. The actions of AgFab need to be reviewed. We are disheartened that once more you are breaking your promise to appoint a qualified member to the Citizens Advisory Committee and not bringing forward the resignation of Ken Smith. Dave Kanuski and myself met with you with our concerns of what has been happening at these meetings. Since you are the liaison to this group, you needed to be made aware of the way the residents were being treated by these committee members. We've had choice words hurled at us by these members. We've been yelled at, asked to leave the meetings, and harassed when we tried to live stream the meeting in which we had already received permission. During that meeting that we had with you, Dave, myself, you said, and I quote, "Dave, you are appointed." Councilman Zagala, I was raised that giving my word meant something. So why hasn't Dave been appointed? Dave is exactly what the committee needs, and Dave will truly represent the interests of the residents of Amherst. We want to thank Councilman Lavin for his service towards the hurricane assistance. However, we didn't want him to feel left out. He introduced Local Law 2024-116, titled Local Law, to enhance transparency and participation in the town of Amherst. At the March 11th meeting, there was discussion that there would be public workshops. The town board has scheduled several discussions of the budget beginning October 15th. Since Councilman Lavin introduced the local law, we, the residents, are requesting that he take responsibility, fulfill this promise, and schedule these public workshops. To date, none have been scheduled. Supervisor Culpa, we are moving forward in a positive direction, and we are calling upon you to right these wrongs. If a town board member gives their word, they should live up to it. As previously stated, this presentation does not give me comfort. Thank you.
John Traver, 234 Mount Vernon Road. I was provided this information and asked to speak upon it. As taxpayers for the town of Amherst, we have no problem with well-qualified individuals being placed in exempt positions. Our issue is when our tax dollars are being used to finance individuals who are not qualified for the position, not a resident of the town, placed in a taxpayer financial job to ensure they receive their pension, etc. We have been reviewing certain positions within the town and have found the following. This information was from FOIL requests. The expansion coordinator is receiving roughly $128,000 salary. This individual was hired because they need 2 to 3 years to receive their pension. This person was involved in a court issue involving retaliation against a county employee. Therefore, was hired by the town of Amherst to remove him from their county position. These are statements sort of posed as questions. I'd like to verify if this information is true. There's a general crew chief position. This individual previously held an exempt position as a project manager for 3 months, not living in Amherst, nor has a waiver been received. A complaint was filed against this individual by a town employee. To protect this individual, they were moved to a CSEA position. Legislative liaison. This individual was a former town of Elma supervisor. He complained that he needed 2 more years to become president of the Association of Towns when he lost the election in 2020. This individual was hired for an exempt position, but still lives in Elma with no residency waiver. Now, to clarify that, this person, I was told by the supervisor, was a part-time person and apparently doesn't need to have a residency requirement. Is that true? Okay, but I'm assuming the first part of the statement was true. The Amherst Town Architect, full-time position at $130,000. However, the individual also holds an adjunct professor position and works Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9:30 to 12:30. Question, when are the 40 hours a week being done? Facilities related to architectural firms are not open on weekends and/or late in the day. Incidentally, this person does not list an address in the town of Amherst. It's in North Buffalo. Last of all, the emergency service coordinator. This is a civil service position, and this person was not on the list and did not take the test or his qualifications verified. I'm not mentioning any names. I'm assuming that everybody knows who they are. So those really are posed as more questions as statements. And is this information true? This is information gained from FOIL requests. If it is, it's not too good. Thank you.
Good evening, town board members. My name is Jerry DeCosmo, and I live on Meyer Road. The town of Amherst is providing accessibility to the town board meetings through YouTube simulcast, but the lack of interactive features during public hearings or public expression could be seen as a missed opportunity for real-time civic engagement and inclusivity. Citizens watching from home may want a way to participate remotely in real time, especially if they're unable to attend in person. To enhance public interaction, the board could consider several options, including a comment section, which would be made part of the permanent record, a live chat, a Zoom or virtual platform integration, a phone-in option, as well as the current option for email submissions, where the citizens send in comments before the meeting, which should be read during the appropriate public hearings or during public expression portion. Also, anything posted on this overhead is not visible to the YouTube viewers. These options would increase transparency and make it easier for citizens to engage with our local government. Besides the email, which is not currently read aloud during appropriate times, there's no hybrid meeting option. I'm very curious why these have not been made available. I would like to encourage anyone still watching or anyone in the audience, especially those on the simulcast who see value in the opportunity to engage with the discussions, to contact the town board and encourage them to have the Amherst IT department set this up. Thank you for your attention.
Good evening, Thomas Frank. I'd just like to bring to your attention that the GBNRTC, the Greater Buffalo Niagara Transportation Council, is going to meet tomorrow at 9:30 at the New York State Thruway Authority at 455 Hugo Road. This is very important as far as all the different agencies that this thing has to go through. And I attended a summit meeting with the New York State Department of Recreation and Historic Preservation, that where you're sitting, believe it or not, it plays a very strategic role in the, you got the bicentennial of the Erie Canal National Heritage Corridor. And this is where the limestone quarries were for making the concrete for shipping to Lockport. That there was, there's history here that as far as the park, the Amherst Central Park Greenway, this can be a part of the Westwood Pharmaceutical Country Club, the Amherst Central Park, the concept that I gave you at one of the public participation meetings, that this has to do with the interconnection. And I just want to bring to your attention that the bank of on Cayuga and Main Street, they're redoing the interior. McNamara and Andrew McDucka would like to take him down to the building at 404 to get an estimate. And I'd like, as far as the Glen Park Joint Board, that, it has to go through these agencies. But I would like Samuel Elba to be a part of the resolution because it extends through 2050. This is a part of a statewide Trails Across New York grassroots guide for developing greenway trails. That this is a part of a statewide program, and for whatever reason, we were excluded by the Niagara Falls Boulevard.
Thank you.
Right, we're a tributary of the Tonawanda Creek.
Okay, all right. Tom, thanks.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to collaborating.
Alicia Schreier, Tristan Lane, Williamsville. I must say, since I've started attending these meetings in December, I have been surprised by some of the information that comes up. And once again, tonight, I am surprised. So I'm just going to say I'm a 30-year resident of Amherst. And you probably know from my past comments, I moved here loving this town, okay? We paid a high price for our house. We paid high taxes because we got services that made those taxes worthwhile. And I was very proud of Amherst because I used to find it on lists nationwide as a great place to live, you know, one of the best towns in America, one of the safest places to live. Tonight, I am surprised by Dennis Holben's comments about what's going on Flint in my town, okay? I used to feel safe until I heard that. I gotta say, I never was worried about where can I travel at night in my town and be safe. But now I'm questioning that. I am questioning the young men, I assume they were men, in the pickup truck. Where do they reside? Are these my new neighbors? Is anybody else concerned about this? I mean, that was shocking, okay? That's not what I bought into when I bought into this town. So in addition to, you know, the 11.4 tax hike, which, you know, and the high price of our new lighting as compared to other towns, which we've talked about a long time, and the development that's just off the rails because lots of people would like to live here. I just would like to know if we now have places in our town where I'm not safe. Thank you. Somebody tell me where this is, where you know, you're allowing this to happen, please.
Gina Gentry, 65 Bissell Drive. I would like to start off tonight by apologizing to Jackie Berger. The last time I spoke, I was out of line with the way that I addressed you, and I am sorry, truly, because I got pushed to a point of frustration where I wasn't being heard, and when it's coming from an elected official, that is something that upsets many people, as I'm sure you've seen in this room and in the past meetings. So I am sorry, and I hope that you accept my apology. I will say that this is a lesson, though, that the way that you interact with us, and not just you, other board members, okay, the way the faces, and people have called it out, but it's going to push people to a frustration because you are here to serve us. And anything else that you take from tonight, whether this new tax, the tax increase is lower this year from the budget, which thank you, it's that people are not going to forget how you treat them. They're not going to forget what you've done. And there have been things that have done, whether through policies or resolutions, that the town of Amherst is not going to forget. So we would like you to start working with us. And I guess, you know, there have been good things, but there's a lot of relationship that needs to be made up in the fact that we don't trust you still. So I'm asking for the board to please hear out the residents again tonight, that you need to start listening to us. Put aside your personal preferences, put aside everything that you want, and think about what is right for the town of Amherst, whether it's removing the illegal immigrants, I don't even want to call them immigrants, the illegals from Flint Road to make our town back to what it was with safety, whether it's supporting our town workers and our police fully, and whether it's taking away from the developers and actually doing what the town board is supposed to do, and that's good and services for the town. There was nothing ever about development. You're not a developer, Brian, when you sit in that seat. You are a town supervisor. Please don't forget that.
Seeing none, I'm going to move to close. Oh, okay. Well, you've already spoken in this round of public expression. No, it's once per round. I'm gonna
Second.
motion to close public expression.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I will address some comments that were, or questions. So there was a question about Costco, and my understanding is that they are close to having their first round of permits through the building department, if they haven't already, with the expectation of construction starting soon. There is a second building going up. It is the Dick's, the new Dick's building on that site. It's adjacent to Costco, and Costco has a gas station relative to Costco, similar to Tops or BJ's. So all of those are still moving forward. All of the traffic ingress and egress, or the primary traffic ingress and egress, is planned off of Bailey. It's one of the reasons why we were able to obtain a grant for the intersection of Bailey and Maple. So we're going to continue to work with Costco and the developers on Bailey improvements. Regarding the October 10th meeting at the senior center, it will be a public hearing. It is only a public hearing on the budget. It's the only matter of business in front of us. It will be recorded and streamed. There will be public participation for the public hearing. And with all three of the public hearings on the budget, I will provide a synopsis of the budget at those public hearings. There is a synopsis online. The budget has been distributed. And so that traditional, the traditional summary sheet that the town has put out is there, along with some additional information. Regarding there's a number of questions regarding the bylaws and appointments, and questions about the Ag Fab Committee. Obviously, the Ag Fab Committee has had some challenges. I usually don't push my office into dealing with committees. I try to leave that to liaisons and to committee chairs. There was a bylaw drafted, my understanding, by the committee. The entire board, including Councilmember Zucalo, agreed that those bylaws needed to be looked at and reviewed by the board. I had remarked to Councilman that with the budget last week, I wasn't going to have an opportunity to do that until the budget was ready and done. We did pull those bylaws from the meeting, and we're going to hold bylaws and appointments until the town board has had an opportunity to coalesce about what should happen with regards to this advisory committee, which could be very helpful when reviewing the budget, the capital improvements plan, and the audit, but needs obviously some town board-wide attention. Regarding the status of people residing at the Red Roof Inn, I've been very clear. I've been very public with my comments. I'm going to stand by all my past comments, whether they were through a news agency or before. Regarding the town of Amherst and the peanut line, nobody had authority. I don't know where she went. Nobody had authority to apply for a grant. As far as I know, the town of Amherst has not received a grant, but there was no authority given to make a grant application at that level. And regarding remedies for water and flooding, I think that's something the town board will look at as we continue to look at drainage issues throughout the town. So with the budget public hearings, we will be talking about the capital improvement plan. It'll be part of the presentation of the public hearings. That includes some of the plans for infrastructure spending that we have for next year and the year after. Most of the largest of those infrastructure improvements are water lines and investments in sewer treatment plant, as we have to replace the system by which we make liquid oxygen. And so that's going to be a heavy endeavor and something that we are going to be dealing with over the next couple of years. Regarding exempt positions, the requirement from the town is that somebody move into the town once they're a permanent employee. However, we have lax civil service tests for certain positions. And while people are still in a role where we can't fully appoint them, that provisional role, there are exemptions. As far as a couple of those positions, the legislative liaison, it is a $10,000 part-time position. It did give us immediate access to the to decision-making bodies at the Association of Towns. We were able to get Town of Amherst priorities through there, not only that association priorities, but we saw those enacted at the state level through coordination between Association of Towns and the local government committee. So I credit Denny Powers, who's frankly opposite side of the aisle for me, but really bringing a town of Amherst interest to the forefront with a very good organization that has made really good inroads with the state. As far as simulcasting or remote participation or comments, those are interesting items to consider. I think that we have to be careful that we don't create distraction or interchange here at the board, in the boardroom, but something that we can look at. As far as the, I think I've covered pretty much everything. So I'd like to say thank you for coming to this evening. I did. I said I've been public and on the record before, Dennis. I'm standing by my past comments. Thank you. With that, I'm going to motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.